Welcome to the Winning Family Podcast with Rodney and Michelle Gage. We are super excited to have you with us once again. This is a podcast designed to help you build a winning family. And just to note, you may not always feel like your family's winning, and that's okay because we're right there with you. You might feel like you're losing, and we're here to help you today. I am Dr. Linda Travelute, the host of this podcast, and right here beside me, if you're looking at us on YouTube, we've got Rodney and Michelle Gage here, the most incredible marriage mentors in the world. Incredible.
Incredible,
Right?
Wow.
Well,
That's a lot of eyes there for incredible.
we're thankful for you, Linda. You are such an incredible host
Oh
as
my.
well.
We got the incredible word.
We hope we can live up to the hype there. Appreciate the kind words.
We're just
It
dishing
is.
the pressure on you.
Oh, well, we're just here to help and give hope in any way we can. And but
That's
yeah,
right.
this is going to be a great conversation.
It
We
is.
all need encouragement along the way, right?
We
We're all
do.
trying to win, and that's the end goal, but we
is.
need a little encouragement along the way.
Absolutely.
I think of a marathon and the people cheering on the side.
That's right.
You're going to make it.
Right.
That's what we're trying to do.
Absolutely. And, we were talking off mic just a few minutes ago that we don't always feel like we're winning, right? And so we don't want to give the idea that if you're listening to this podcast, you have to be winning because we sometimes feel like we're losing. But the idea here is we're going to help them win, right?
Right.
We're going to help them score.
Right.
And I love this topic that you guys are going to speak about, the difference between an inheritance and a legacy. Because when we think of leaving something for our children and our grandchildren, a lot of times our first thought is we're gonna leave an inheritance. But you're bringing up the idea that you're gonna leave them a legacy, which is more important. So it's more important what you leave in them, not what you leave for them. Right?
Absolutely.
I love that. Where do you want to start?
Oh, goodness. This is so much on my mind right now because 2 years ago I lost my father, and it was unexpected to us. And it just really has caused us just to really think and process all the things that he left in us. And it is just phenomenal, the things that I'm realizing I'm the way I am because of what he left in me. And I can see it as I'm processing, and we're writing a book right now about my dad's life and the 12 main choices that he made in his life to mentor us and those around him, and what those choices were, because life is not a chance. It is a choice, and we have to make choices in order to leave the kind of legacy that we want to leave behind. And I'm so grateful for what he left in me, and it's just awesome as I look back and read and think and talk about his mother and his grandmother and his life story, how it's been passed from generation to generation to generation. And there's an awesome scripture that is found in Psalm 78. It's 3-7. I don't know if I should read the whole thing, but it just talks about how for 4 generations, if you're intentional, it can be passed from generation to generation to generation. Our values, our faith, the choices that we make, if we're intentional about it, it's something that can be passed, and a mark that is left in our life.
Yeah.
On
and
purpose.
And it's in that verse and passage there you're referring to, Michelle, for those that are listening, is not just like some suggestion the Bible gives. It's actually something that's commanded. It's something that as believers, especially as a Christian family who is trying to build their home, their family, their marriage on, Christian values and biblical principles, this is something that God desires. He wants his story to be told. You think about the generations before us. God doesn't want us to forget that. He wants us to remember all that he did and all the sacrifices that were made. This, like the old saying, the blood, sweat, and tears of everything that God did to get us to this place. And so rather than ignoring that or saying, oh, that's old fashioned, or that doesn't work today, or whatever, no, that's God's plan. And so how can we how can we change the paradigm? How can we rewrite the story? Maybe you didn't grow up in a Christian home. Maybe you didn't
Right.
have exposure to anything like that. And so here you are, maybe starting out in your marriage or, young family, and you're thinking, well, I didn't have that kind of a past or those kind of models or mentors. So how does that impact me? Well, even if your situation in your past may have been hurtful or dysfunctional or highly toxic or whatever, well, we have the opportunity we serve a God who's a God of second chances. We can break that old dysfunctional cycle and we can start where we are today, looking forward and rebuild that. And we can change the course of history moving forward. We can't undo the past, but we can change the future.
That's something interesting about my dad's story, is that his father was away at war when he was born. And when he came home from the war, he had some major issues and ended up having cancer and then had MS. And so he was bedridden for many years. So my dad really didn't have the father figure in his life. He was present in the home, but he passed when my dad was 17 years old. So he didn't, for many, many years, his dad was not really present in his life. And so he had to learn what it meant to be a father. He had a strong mother figure in his life, but he really didn't have that father figure. And so he had to seek it out. I think he was the best father in the world. I couldn't have dreamed of a better father. But it wasn't something that he really was passed to him from his father. It was something that he had to seek out and learn. He sought mentors, and he sought the Lord, and he did a lot of things to find out what it meant to be a good father.
Same is true with my parents. My dad came from a non-Christian, non-churched home. In fact, he was basically raised in the back of his grandfather's bar. He was a street gang leader, in and out of jail, drugs, alcohol. My mom was an only child, but she knew 6 different men in her life that she called dad as a father. And my dad married her on her 15th birthday. So he was 17. She got married on her 15th birthday to my dad. And both of them did not know the Lord at the time. Super long story short, same situation as Michelle just alluded to. They didn't have a, good modeling situation growing up, but it was through the man who ended up leading my parents to the Lord. He and his wife had my mom and my dad come live with them and basically just sewed into them and mentored them on how to live life. And it changed the course of their future. And now they have 4 sons that are all serving God, and now grandchildren. And so Michelle's side, now you have all the grandkids. And so
forever grateful for that couple that mentored them, forever changed our life.
So it changed the trajectory of future generations. Yeah. So that's our encouragement today to anybody who's listening who might say, well, that's great for you guys, but you don't understand the home I was raised in, or you don't understand my situation. And we may not, but our encouragement and hope would be that regardless of what your circumstances or past home life or structure may have been growing up, we serve a God who's a God of new beginnings, and he wants to do something new in your life and in your home and your marriage with your kids, and do something new. As Isaiah teaches us, he wants to do a new thing. Right. He wants to bring about something new and fresh that can be imparted into future generations. And so that's why it's so important that we focus on what we're going to leave in our children, not just for our children.
Right. And for those listeners that are coming from maybe the same place your parents came from, and they didn't have a legacy imparted to them, you guys can help them build that legacy, because you can be the mentors in their lives. And let me just let folks know, if you are interested in Rodney and Michelle's mentoring program, just go to thedoublewinclub.com and you can learn about their mentoring program. In fact, there's a 30-day trial option, I guess we could call it, right? They can get 30 days of free mentoring and also I know I'm supposed to wait till the end of the episode to share this, but you guys, you can get Rodney's new book called The Double Win. 8 questions everyone must ask to win at work and at home. So what a great opportunity for people who want to build this legacy. They don't know how. You guys can help them with that, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. We all need mentors in our lives. I was reading in the Bible one day about the prophet Elijah and Elisha, and the prophet Elijah said to Elisha, what can I do for you before I leave? And Elisha said, your life repeated in mine.
Wow.
Was his only request. And we all need somebody that we look to that I want to repeat what they did. They did it right. And that kind of became a mantra for me. And thinking about my dad, I was so blessed to have him as a mentor in my life. And that truly, when I write down words that describe him, I keep going back to mentor. We all need a mentor in our life. And your life repeated in mine was just kind of the thought and prayer that I had. And it's the things that are left in us and the things that we give to our children that were, core values, things that will last forever,
Right.
really in their life. We tell this story when I was traveling one time in Texas, there were these orange figures in the hallway at the Southwest Terminal there in the Dallas airport, and they were women. And there were 3D figures. So they had scanned these women of influence, and they told their story down at the bottom, but they were orange, And so it was like they had taken this person and they repeated them. Like it was like they were standing right there in front of me. And that was kind of the thought that I had, that your life repeated in mine. What can I do, to where I repeat the same things over and over, and how can I be that for my kids? And we kind of came up with this 3D legacy that we can talk about now.
Yeah, share that.
But the first one is to decide what your legacy will be. You have to determine that.
Right.
You can't go somewhere without knowing the destination, and just kind of figuring out, what does that look like? Who does that look like?
Right.
Who's doing what I want to do and in my life? So we have to determine what we want it to be. And the Bible says, that we have to determine, as for me and my house, we'll serve the Lord. Joshua said that you have to decide what your future is going to look like. And there's many things that we can do. We can look to our past, we can look to our present, what's going on in our life right now, and then look to our future. What things do we need to put in place? What systems do I need to put in place? What things do I need to put on my calendar?
Right.
What things do I need to be very intentional about to determine what my future is going to look like?
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's an issue of us, I think, trying to figure out. I like to say it this way: you can't become who you need to be by remaining who you are. So that requires change, and so really, what changes do we need to make? What questions do we need to ask ourselves when it comes to, maybe the patterns that we have been consistent of repeating that may not have been healthy, life-giving, productive patterns that maybe are the kind of values that we ultimately would like to impart, but these are values that maybe they're the wrong kind of values, but we kind of inherited those values from a previous generation that maybe were not the best kind of values. So if I want to move away from that and embrace something completely new and different that is more in alignment with what God values and what's important to Him and what's important to me and to us as a family, then I have to start making whatever adjustments and make those changes. And sometimes they're hard. They're very difficult. Sometimes they're emotional. But we have to work through that so that we can start imprinting, if you will, the right kind of values, principles that we're committed to live by moving forward. That's the end result. That's the future that we want to start moving towards. And so that change is the hard part. And it's learning a lot about ourselves. It's learning a lot about our past. It's why we think the way we think, why we've chosen to do some of the things that we've done. A lot of that has been shaped because of what's been imprinted on us in the past.
Right.
So we have to kind of throw off, not that we're disrespecting or dishonoring, our parents or grandparents or whomever. We're not doing that to dishonor them. But at the same time, we have to kind of put on a new set of clothes in the sense of taking off the old garments, putting on the new ones, and realizing that moving forward, we're going to have to do things differently. And in order to have the positive generational impact that we want to see carried out for future generations. I love in the Passion Translation, it uses the word perpetuity. It's that ongoing, endless, legacy that we impart. So
that's good. So the 3 Ds.
Yes.
What's the second one?
So the first one is decide what you want your future, your legacy to be. And then the second is to determine how you want to make your mark. So it's similar to what we were just talking about. But again, life isn't a chance, it's a choice. It's the choices that we make, and it's what we do daily in our life.
Yes.
What are the things that we're doing daily? Because those are the things that are going to add up to make a difference in our life. So
yeah, and just to put it in a practical sense. So, for example, it might be that maybe you didn't grow up going to church. And so it might be a situation where you say, you know what? Well, this is a decision that we're going to make as a couple or as a family. We're going to start going to church. We're going to make that a priority rather than allowing soccer or gymnastics or just mowing the grass or, watching a football game on Sunday to be our norm. We're going to say no to some good things so we can say yes to better things. That's going to actually impart and imprint the kind of values that we want to live by. And so that's where we have to start making those changes that I spoke to a few moments ago. And that's where our priorities comes in as it relates to how we're going to restructure things so that we can actually carry out what we say we want to actually do.
yeah. So when our children think of us, what is our life marked by?
Right.
One thing can be the convictions. What convictions is our life marked by? And I reference all the time the Word of God because that is my true north in my life. And I want that to be passed to my children, and my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren, that they can mark their life by this true north, that there is a right and wrong,
There is.
and that there is only one way that is north.
Right.
And in life, there is as well with our convictions and our values that we do have a compass for our life. And I believe that's the Word of God. And so that's something that I really tried to impart to my children, that they can build their life on what the Bible talks about, that firm foundation instead of the sand, that they can build their life on the rock and they can have something that they can hold on to.
And that can be so practical. Like, I remember just a few months back, my daughter, Tiffany, is, I think, 24. I say I think because I'm not good with numbers. It's just somewhere in the neighborhood, right? And she was having a work issue, right? And she said, Mom, what do I do about this? She was perplexed. She wanted to, could I say she was upset. I'll just put it that way. She was very frustrated. And she could have she could have done the wrong thing. Not that she would have, but she said, Mom, what do I do? I said, well, let's just consider what the Bible tells us to do in this scenario and go with that, right? And she's like, oh, yeah, right. It's that easy. It's that easy. Let's just see what the Word says. And she already knew what the Word would say about it, what the Bible would say. And then she's like, yeah, it is that simple. I'm just going to do that because we've determined that is our standard. So I think in a very practical way, just
Yeah, and I think having the word in your life, you know,
Yeah.
so that you can lean on that, and it just becomes a part of you,
Mhm.
is important. And it may not be the easy way, but it is the best way to really build your life
Yes,
on a
yes.
firm foundation. Just as simple as even reading one proverb a day,
Yeah.
because there's such wisdom in the
Yes.
Proverbs. You know, it can answer most of life's questions
My goodness.
in the Proverbs. You know, if you can read Proverbs 31, you know, on the 31st day of the month.
Yeah, it's
Yes.
funny that yes, amen, and amen, and like I say amen and FM. But yeah, it's funny you brought that illustration or example up about your daughter, because in today's world and culture, you know, a lot of parents would say, well, if that's the way they're treating you, you just need to quit.
Yeah.
Or if that's the
exactly.
way they're treating you, you need to give them a piece of your mind. Or if that's the way they're treating you, well, you need to stand up for yourself. Don't be a doormat, blah, blah, blah. Well, is that really what we want?
That's
Is that
our
the
natural- that's
is
the
that the wise
natural way,
counsel we
yeah.
really want to give? Do they have the right to do that? Well, possibly, but you know, is that the best way to
Right,
approach that?
right.
Probably not. But again, it's those convictions of there's a right way and a wrong way. There's a healthy way. There's an unhealthy way. There's a life-giving way. There's a destructive way. There's so many different things. And if we're not careful, we can just kind of conform to the way the world does it or the way the culture teaches or models it, because that's the default,
Right.
you know? So it's living by those convictions. And then,
Yeah, the character,
Yeah.
having the mark of character in your life as well. It's just so important that we're known by our character.
Absolutely.
That's the way people will know us.
Yes.
And God's original design is for us to be like Him, you know. And He's kind of chipping away through a lot of things in our life.
Yes.
You know, the people that we look to as mentors can help us with our character, but also the struggles and the pressures and the challenges of life are great at developing our character if we
Yeah.
allow it to. And our children are watching.
Mm-hmm.
When we go through difficult times, our life is telling a story.
Yes.
And they'll remember.
Yep.
You know, I remember what my dad went through and the character that he displayed when he went through some
Yes.
very difficult times. That
That's right.
marked my life.
It marked you.
Yes.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
yeah, and it's helping our kids navigate through those hard decisions, you know, because that's the character qualities that we can impart to them by just helping kind of navigate with them through things where it's how they handle things, it's how they approach things, it's what they say or maybe what they don't say, or what they do, what they don't do. And all of those things are helping shape their character. So, for example, you know, I had a conversation just recently about a situation with my son, Luke, and, you know, he was kind of in a fork of the road type situation related to what he should do between a couple of parties on a relationship level and on a business level. And it was a little bit of a sticky situation, somewhat of a complicated situation. And I said, well, you need to first and foremost, you need to honor the person that you're working directly with. Honor him, honor the process, and everything else will fall into place. Well, that was a way for me to help him from a character perspective, just walk through and navigate a very complicated situation. But at the end of the day, I wanted him to win with his character in the eyes of the person that really deserved to be honored in the process. And both deserve to be honored, but I wanted him to understand the value of honor and the value of just open communication and transparency, because all of that is attached to your character.
Yes.
Right.
You know, if he would have went around his back, or if he would have done something that wouldn't have been, you know, right or ethical, well, that would have been a reflection on his character. So all of those things, you know, are huge when it comes to just kind of, again, this is what we're leaving in
That's right.
our kids.
That's right.
Yeah. So another mark is communication. So not just communication with them, because that is extremely important. That is extremely important. First of all, communication with God, you know, through prayer.
Yes.
That I want to be remembered and known in my legacy as a woman of prayer. no question, I want that to be, mark it down right now. I pray I'll be a woman of prayer. But also communication with our kids is just really, really important. Those moments that we find that are not necessarily on our time, but on their time, when they're ready to communicate, are we ready? And are we willing to be vulnerable in communication and help speak truth to them? What our friend Sean Lovejoy talks about the last 99 or the last 10%. In a conversation, you hold back the last 10%, but it's so important, and it's so important with our kids too we're real honest with them. And sometimes the conversations are not easy.
No.
But sometimes we have to go there and
speak the truth in love, in a spirit of love.
Yeah, that's right.
It's so good.
That's right. And the last that is the mark of confidence. Not only do I want to be known a woman of confidence that my kids can look to, that I walked in and I did the things that I felt I was the purpose of my life, but I want to pass that and that mark be left in them, not pride or ego, but walking confidently in what God has called you to.
Right. That's so good.
And confidence comes from God. So rather than our kids seeing their confidence in what they drive or how much money they make or what they wear or the house they live in or whatever, that's not confidence, but confidence comes from God. So the more secure we are in our relationship with Him, when our identity is built upon Him, we understand who we are in Him, and we realize that God is for us. He's with us. God, He and He alone is the one who gives us the confidence that I like to call it Godfidence.
Yeah.
It's the Godfidence that He gives us that allows us to walk, not arrogantly, but walk humbly, but securely in our confidence, because of our identity is in Him, not in anything or anybody else. And that's where true confidence comes from. So if we can impart those values, those principles, those legacy marks that Michelle talked about, then we're setting our children up for success. We're going to help them win, that they can pass on, leave those legacy marks onto their children.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
the last one.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was just saying the goal is that 4 generations, think
That's
about, just the ripple effect, that can have.
Yeah. And the last one is just dare to live intentional,
That's it.
because life is short. You got to live intentional, and life is long. You got to stay encouraged. So we're here to encourage you, but live each day, each moment intentional. The Bible tells us to number our days, that we may gain a heart of wisdom, that we can make a difference with our lives. We have to number and count our days, but don't get overwhelmed. It's one day at a time, and just intentionally each moment. Just making a difference in those that are right in front of us.
Absolutely.
Well, guys, thank you for making a difference in the lives of our listeners today, because I'm sure they've been encouraged. And it's just take this with you guys. Those of you that are listening, it's far more important to leave something inside of our children than to leave something to them, right? Or for them. So what wisdom. We want to remind you that we'd love to hear from you. You can DM us on Instagram or Facebook. Leave us your review, your questions, because Rodney and Michelle want to answer your questions in future episodes. Give them podcast topic ideas that would be helpful to you. And also, I know some folks that need to hear these podcast episodes. So, hey, share it. Share it with your friends, your family, and you'll end up being the hero. It just might help a family turn the corner and start winning, because we all sometimes feel like we're losing. But that's why the Winning Family Podcast exists. It's to encourage you and to inspire you and to help you in a very practical way. So find out more about Rodney and Michelle's mentoring program at thedoublewin.club.com. You can also find a copy of the new book, The Double Win, on Amazon or Barnes & Noble, wherever you buy books. And you can even, did I even mention this? they can get a copy, I probably did earlier, they can get a copy of your new book by going to thedoublewingclub.com, signing up for 30 days of free mentoring, and they'll get a book in the mail, a hardcover, right? A hardcover book.
Free copy.
Nice.
That's right. Yeah.
Nice.
And, it's just a tool and resource that will help individuals, couples, families. Once again, it's built around 8 questions. And the purpose of these questions are just to begin, if anything, it's to stir up some things in your heart and in your mind to help you evaluate your current situation. And really, these questions are designed to be not only thought-provoking, but also help kind of like frame changes that need to be made, steps that need to be taken in order for you to win both at home and in life, and whether that's in the workplace or with your kids in school or whatever season or circumstances they're in. So anyway, we just want to come alongside and be the cheerleaders, if you will, of today's parents, couples, so that they can be all that God has destined them to be and help them succeed and win and achieve their desired goals as well as a family.
Absolutely.
You can do it.
That's right. We are cheering you on, and we'll see you next time.